Acts chapter 28. So last time we left off, Paul and his companions, they had set sail from Malta and arrived in Rome, and in verse 16, it says that after they had stayed there for 3 days, Paul, he decided to break his fast. But notice what happens in verse 17. It says that when the 4th day was come, on which Paul was to be examined of the things spoken of by him concerning the faith in Christ, having now fasted 5 days, he came to the house of the governor with his companions. Now, the reason why Paul fasted here, some people think that, well, this was just a Jewish thing where if you're going into the presence of God, like for example, when you go into the temple, you would fast. And so since this is a spiritual thing, Paul, being very spiritual, no doubt fasted here. But I think there's another reason why Paul fasted. You see, when you fast, it shows that you're serious. And so Paul knew that when he goes before this Roman governor, Festus, he's going to have to make the case again for why he believes what he believes. And so Paul wanted to make sure that he was presenting himself in the best way possible. So he took this time to fast and then went before the governor. And notice how it says here in verse 18. It says that Festus had read the report of the Jews' accusations against Paul when he arrived in Rome. And so this was not the first time that Festus heard about Paul. In fact, Festus was already familiar with the case because he received the paperwork on it. But what does he do? I love his response here in verse 19. It says that Festus answered, saying, Paul, you're a Roman citizen, aren't you? For what charge are you being held? And he said, I stand here before you as a Roman citizen. What crime have I committed? When Festus realized that Paul was a Roman citizen, he went out of his way to treat Paul fairly and equally. And so even though the Jewish leaders, they were asking for Paul to be punished, Festus did not want to go against Rome's own laws. He wanted to do the right thing. And so at this point, Festus tells Paul, okay, you're a Roman citizen, so I'm going to send your case back to the emperor. And so Festus sends Paul back to Caesar. And the whole purpose of this letter, as we saw last time, was to get the attention of Caesar, so that Paul could be a witness to him and his court. And so that's what's happening here in Acts chapter 28. But I want you to notice, though in verse 30, what happened during this whole trial. What does it say? It says that 2 years had now passed since Paul was sent to Rome, and during this time, he had remained a prisoner in his rented house, able to preach the gospel and receive visitors freely. So Paul's evangelistic ministry continued in Rome, and you can see that the gospel, it was spreading everywhere throughout all of Italy. And you know what's interesting? Italy actually became a mission field as a result of Paul's imprisonment. So just think about that. Rome, the greatest city in the world, it was reached for Christ through the imprisonment of the Apostle Paul.